by one woman to another. In my country, at least, it is one of the most frequently used, if not the most frequently used, scriptural text at heterosexual church weddings, which, if you think about it, means that all over North America, unwitting heterosexual couples are pledging to love like two lesbians. Before you ask me how I know they are lesbians, let me just follow Jesus' example and ask you a question. You know, his way of dealing with questions is answer mine and I'll answer yours. My question is, how do you know they weren't? The fact remains, as Phyllis Tribble, who is, I think, a great Hebrew scriptures scholar, first pointed out, in a world where survival is dependent upon men, one woman pledges undying fidelity to another and actually supports her. As I mentioned in another section, returning to Bethlehem, these two women's hope for survival rests on a male relative claiming or redeeming Naomi, not Ruth, because Naomi is the Israelite and Boaz's relative. Ruth is from Moab, interestingly enough, making her the descendant of Lot's incestuous relationship with his eldest daughter, but that's another sermon, I'm sure. Because of her age and the fact that she has nothing of substance to offer, no one redeems Naomi. Ruth then takes on the role of Goel, or redeemer, and in securing pregnancy through Boaz, gives her child to Naomi. And as we noted before, the townswomen then proclaim Ruth better to Naomi than 7 sons. They are clearly acknowledging the role that Ruth has played here. But perhaps of more importance here is the feminization, if you will, of redemption. Jesus will follow his ancestress' example, incorporate her theology, I think, in his own practice of redemption when he goes back for Lazarus, the one he loves, according to John 11. He returns to Lazarus, as Ruth did to Naomi, his rightful place in life. What would it do even if we continue to use the language of redemption if we defined our terms in light of female examples, or at least drew the historical connection between Ruth and Jesus? Many things that automatically conjure up male associations for us are not so uniform in the Bible. Deborah is a warrior and a judge, two images often used in association with the functions and workings of God. But Barak will say he will not go to battle without her. It is the only way he can be sure God is with him. For him, Deborah bears the presence and power of God, not only as a man, as a female, or as a wise woman, but as a warrior and a protective source of strength and inspiration. Many traditions base their teaching on the supremacy of maleness, or stories like that of Genesis' creation account. But there are 2 stories of creation in Genesis, and in Genesis 1:27 it says God created Ha-Adam. It's not a first name here. Again, Phyllis Tribble translates as the earth creature. God created Ha-Adam in the image of God's self. Male and female, God created the earth creature. There are perhaps multiple ways to interpret and imply the message here. That male and female are equally bearing the image of God would be one, and implying in that God is neither male nor female, as we conceive of those identities. Another way to look at this would be to say that the first human being was more like the Indian tradition of people who bear both masculine and feminine qualities in themselves, someone who bears both characteristics, and that's the fullest image of God, and that only when we as individuals communally reveal that, do we really reflect the fullest presence of God. In this case, male and female would not be dueling genders, but component parts of each life. In that case, defining male and female as concepts would have less to do with biology and more to do with spirituality and our closeness to God. And I could probably go on about this for a long time because this actually has meaning to me, but since I've talked a long time, I'm going to sorry.
I think Reverend Bell has illustrated for us what a woman's perspective is when you approach the study of the Bible and also the life of the church. And it also reflects how long it has been for the male domination in the Christian community. Not only do we not hear too much of the feminine figures in Scripture, we also have the church fathers teaching us. We have also the male leadership in the churches, and even the ordination of women is still a question in a number of churches. Also impressed by the fact that in recent years, those who are in seminaries, most of them, there are more women in the seminaries than men. And there will certainly be a great change in understanding the theology that will emerge as they interpret the Scriptures, as they reshape the life of the Christian community and demonstrate equality. I think I want to link it up with what Sulin has just said, because it comes up of a problem that we face as to why is it, there is less interaction between the gays and the lesbians in FCC, for instance. And we are struggling to find an answer. If we are unable to accept equality, if our religion does not help us to deal with equality, how do we therefore shape the theology in which we live by? If we really believe in the equality of men and women in our Christian community, then it must certainly be manifest in the gay and lesbian community. And yet there seems to be some conspiracy of silence, and nobody knows or understands what's happening. What I'm trying to say is that to link up in some sense the kind of theology that we are really believing in, which talks about equality, gender equality, and the kind of relationship even between gays and lesbians. I have a feeling that the lesbian community feels very much threatened, even in the LGBT community, because of a powerful male figure. And therefore there's a connection between our understanding of God, which I'm afraid still persists as a male figure, although we don't want to admit it. But there is this male chauvinism that may come into play, even in the gay and lesbian community. We are all